All right. Well, I'm so excited to be back with you again. It's so great to get to hang out in your kitchen. So I'm Andrea Hunley, your favorite state senator. I have to say that to you since I'm your state senator.
You are my favorite state senator, though, so it's very true.
And I am drinking the blackberry and raspberry teas. I always carry tea with me everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has that always been a thing that you've done? Have you always been a tea drinker?
Yes, and since I was teaching, I just would always have tea packets always with me, and I've always got them in my bag.
Okay.
My desk at the State House. Yes, I love tea.
Is Taylor's your go-to brand?
You know, someone gifted this to me.
Okay.
So, yes, I do like the gift of tea as well.
The gift of tea.
Yes.
I love it. And then is it blackberry and raspberry? Is that a go-to flavor, or do you have a preferred tea flavor?
I
that
do
you usually
like
go
fruit.
with?
I do like fruit teas. It's true. I like a white tea, a fruit tea. Yes.
Okay.
Which, you know, some tea purists may say isn't really tea, so don't at me about that. But yes.
I wouldn't know the difference. I'm a coffee guy. I have my coffee here out of the Nespresso. But is there a big difference? What's the difference in like the white tea or the non-pure tea versus the pure tea?
Well, some people, you know, like their black tea, you know, that all of that. But sometimes that's too strong for me, and I don't want a lot of caffeine.
Okay,
so,
not a lot of caffeine. So never a coffee drinker.
I mean, on occasion, but
Okay.
I get decaf.
Decaf,
Yes.
the orange rim.
Yes, it's true. That's me. Listen, I already have enough energy for an entire room of people. I do
Totally.
not need caffeine to help.
Totally. I feel like that is a stereotype of politicians is drinking coffee, like getting the styrofoam cup of coffee or something. Or
Oh
what
my
happens
gosh.
at the State House or the
Speaking
courthouse.
of the
Yeah.
styrofoam, okay, that's my biggest pet peeve.
Okay, let us know.
Actually, not my biggest. I have a lot of pet peeves about the State House, but that's one of them. So I've been trying to get rid of these styrofoam cups.
Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, not good for the environment.
not good.
Well, of the many things that you do on top of getting rid of styrofoam cups or attempting to, on Tuesday the 25th, it was announced that the Indiana GOP was going to reconvene in order to try and draw new maps in a mid-cycle redistricting attempt per President Trump's request. This comes on the heels of Senate President Pro Tem Roderick Bray saying that there were not enough votes to move forward with this and that they were not going to reconvene until January when the new session started.
That's true. And we actually voted and passed a resolution on November the 18th, all of us senators, that said we will not reconvene until January 5th. So actually, this decision to bring us back in early, December 8th is when he's trying to bring us back in, it actually is going against our procedures and our rules. And so here they are breaking the rules again, trying to break the rules again, just to rig these maps.
Yeah. And it really, it felt like what happened on the 18th felt really like a huge victory. And for Hoosiers, and it felt like we can breathe a little bit. I think I even wrote on Threads, I'm like, it feels like we can exhale. Not necessarily like the battle is over, but it's like, oh, okay, we can wait until 2026 to deal with some of this. And then, surprise, we're going to deal with it now. And so in this conversation, I think we want to talk a little bit about how we got to this point that we're at where we're trying to redraw maps mid-cycle. What does that mean in this moment? And then what can we as constituents do to make a difference?
Well, I'll tell you, folks have already been making a difference. I mean, the way that we have seen coalitions of people from across the state calling in, emailing, showing up, sending letters to make their voices heard has been incredible. And that really was what we were feeling the height of on November 18th with the vote. But you asked how we got here. So I want to be really clear that I am totally biased in this conversation because I think that us trying to do a mid-district rigging of the maps is problematic. I mean, you can even tell by I'm calling it map rigging. It is not redistricting, because redistricting is a legitimate process that happens once every 10 years in Indiana after the census. And then we have maps that are proposed. We have maps that then go across the state to different hearings so that the community members can come and speak on them. And then finalized maps are voted on by each chamber. And so when the last maps were voted on after the last census, they actually got an A rating here in Indiana. And if you look at the tapes, roll the tapes back, you can see our Republican colleagues all saying these are great maps.
Sure.
They are A maps. They, represent folks. They're balanced. They're fair. And what those maps entail are 9 congressional seats. So out in U.S. Congress in D.C.,
Yep.
those 9 congressional seats, 7 of them are Republican seats held by Republicans, and 2 are held by Democrats. Now, there's been a call from the president, it happened back in August, and he said, hey, I want to grab those final 2 seats from Indiana and make it 9-9 red. And the only way to do that would be to redraw maps.
Right.
And so that's how we got here.
And that comes off the heels of him putting the pressure on Texas to do a redistricting mid-cycle, which they did, which then triggered California to redraw their own maps, which has now led to Indiana. So something that we kind of talked about before we hopped on mic was how this doesn't necessarily feel like it has anything to do with Indiana, with Hoosiers.
No, it has to do with D.C., completely with D.C. and who will have power, right?
Sure.
Because if you're the president, then you want your party to have a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate. And so that's the goal here, is that Trump knows he's losing popularity. He knows that his policies have been problematic for people. And so he knows that the only way for them at the 2026 election time to maintain a majority of Republican seats in the House is to steal them.
Sure.
Is to redraw maps, is to rig the maps. Because if you let voters just go to the polls, with the maps the way that they are now, they know that they're going to lose seats.
Sure. You talked about how our 9 districts have already in 2020 been split up 7-2 Republican, Democrat. And since 2010, I believe, we have been operating under a Republican supermajority in both the Senate and then in the House in 2012. So they've already held the reins. Now we have a governor, and we've had the past 2 governors have been Republicans. So they already hold the reins of power. So if you can share, how do these 2 seats help them in any way?
Well, that's a good question. And quite frankly, having additional seats in D.C. is not going to help Hoosiers, right? It's not going to help us right here because we're the ones making state policy. There already is a Republican supermajority, as you pointed out, for 20 years. And I would argue that in and of itself has been problematic, but maybe that's for another day. But we we haven't seen an increase in health outcomes. We haven't seen an increase in education outcomes. We haven't seen an increase in people having more money in their bank accounts, right? Actually, debt has increased. And so I would say that those policies really haven't been working for Hoosiers for 20 years. But the fact of the matter is that that's for us to decide here at our own ballot boxes. We are to battle that out with policy discussions, with debates, with forums, with all of those things here, not rig maps so that we get predetermined results. Yeah. And that's really, what's happening. And that will just help nationally. That's just going to help the president move his agenda forward. It does not help us on the local level.
Sure. Something I've been seeing online a lot is, I guess I saw a quote from Mike Braun saying that we're doing this because we want fair representation for Hoosiers, which I already think is funny because we've been, I think, unfairly represented for the past 20 years. But then I saw a statistic that I haven't verified floating around that the state itself is 60-40 Republican, Democrat registered voters. So that is true.
Yes, that's true.
Okay,
yes.
So ostensibly, a fair map would be something that more accurately reflected our registration numbers.
I love that you think that data matters in these decisions. I just think that's so wonderful.
It's not just me. This is a lot of people online when I ask the question who are saying the exact same thing.
Yes. And in fact, actually, on that November 18th Organization Day, when Senator Mike Young, Republican, got up to the floor to argue about redistricting, he actually said the same thing that you just said. He said, actually, if we were going to make it fairer, then we would create an additional Democrat seat.
Mm.
And I don't often agree with Senator Young, but that moment I wanted to give him a high five because it's true. I mean, and if you remember, in 2008, Indiana went for Obama.
Yeah.
And we say that because, as a reminder, that we are much more purple. Hoosiers are very independent thinkers. We are folks who don't want to be told what to do by
Right.
DC, I'll tell you that. And we want to just focus on, what matters for us. And I think that's what makes Indiana so unique. And so we often say, we're a purple state.
Yeah.
It's just that we haven't had voters turning out.
Mm.
Here's two other numbers for you. 101,000 registered voters in Marion County did not show up to the polls in the last election cycle, and over 300,000 Hoosiers across the state who were registered didn't show up.
Damn.
And that's a huge problem. Like, we have the ability to shift the outcomes of elections if we just show up.
Well, I think probably one of the things influencing that is the maps themselves, the districts themselves. So can you give us just a little bit of an explainer on how, like, districts and maps can get drawn to shape the seats the way that they are,
Yeah.
and then, like, how that would disenfranchise someone who maybe was part of a different district who now finds themselves in a new one?
So I think that my Senate seat is a perfect example. So during the last map redraw and the redistricting, Indianapolis gained a seat because we have gotten more folks who are now living here in Marion County, and so our Senate districts each have about 150,000 people in them.
Okay.
And that needs to be true across every district in the state. So that's why some Senate districts could take 2 hours to drive across, and you've got multiple counties in them.
Mhm.
And then others like mine, I mean, I can take the what will be the blue line across my district in 20 minutes and get across the entire thing.
Yep.
So some of us are much more compact. So what they did is they drew a brand new seat, which is now District 46 that I serve in.
Woo!
And it was seen as a gift to Democrats because this seat is about 70% registered Democrats, 30% registered Republicans, which means that it will be very, very hard for a Republican to ever win this seat.
Sure.
Now, when we look at representation in that way, I mean, that means that the real election is in the primary
Sure.
for this seat.
Sure.
And so if folks aren't showing up to the polls in May, then they're really not going to have a good vote, or have any influence over who is chosen.
Sure.
If they're not showing up.
Because they already missed the opportunity to pick the person that they would have wanted in the first place.
Absolutely. But when you create districts like this, then you actually can get more extremes in your primary elections, because you start to pull people who are maybe farther to the left in this case.
Okay.
So that you're really kind of racing to see, well, who's the most, liberal, who's the most. And so
Sure.
then you get the same thing in Republican districts that are Republican controlled, where then your primary, you're getting people who are arguing about who is the most Republican, who's the farthest to the right, and that's who you want to vote for. And so now we have senators that in this new May primary here in Indiana, they're being primaried from the right because they're being seen as being too moderate
Okay.
for some of the votes that they're taking.
Sure.
And so that election is going to be decided in May. And if
Okay.
people aren't showing up at the polls, then they're really not getting a vote. And so then it's the same thing if you extrapolate that out to the congressional races,
Sure.
right? To those 9 congressional seats. And so our seat, Congressional District 7 here in Marion County, is a pretty safely blue seat.
Yeah.
And it's the one that Congressman Carson currently holds. But then you go, on the south side, and it is a red district,
Yeah.
and it's packed in that way. And that's totally legal. Both sides of the aisle do it in terms of, creating these districts where you pack in people of a certain political leaning. And so people do draw maps for political reasons.
Sure.
What you can't do is draw maps for racial reasons.
Right.
And that's where Texas maps were being challenged, the redraw, and that's where, if it happens in Indiana, where we'll be challenging as well.
Sure.
Because like Congressional District 7, for example, has one of the largest concentrations of Black voters. So then if you split them up
Right.
to make it more of a Republican district, then that would be disenfranchising
Sure.
voters of color, and so that is illegal.
So I think even were we to redistrict or redraw District 7 and then which one is Frank Mervant? What the up
District
north
1.
District
Mhm.
1, and split those up. I have a feeling that they would probably still go to Congressman Carson, Congressman Mervant, and wouldn't really. Again, I think we talked about this, but wouldn't really have that big of an impact.
Well, it depends, right? Because there are, I mean, Illinois, listen, they're my Democrat friends, but like they have very creative districts that some of them just look like a snake,
Okay,
all
interesting.
curved around portions of the state. And so there are interesting ways that you can draw a map. I think
Okay,
we think of it as like squares or rectangles, but it doesn't have to be that way.
sure,
So, but there is a risk that they could make red districts more purple by
sure,
splitting these up. And then you get four
yeah.
Democrats elected, which, could be interesting. And part of me wants to say, let's find out.
Well, that was one of the things that somebody said was like, aren't they worried about the margins like now becoming more purple and potentially losing some of the seats that they already have in an effort to just gain two more? How do they expect to square that with their constituents?
They don't have to.
Okay,
I mean, I think that that's exactly it. Because if you hear the reasons for redistricting, it has been everything from we're getting threats from the White House, so we have to do what they say, to this is going to save America because we'll be able to have a majority in Congress,
sure,
which that's not squaring with me.
sure. No,
To this is the real way to represent Hoosiers. I mean, all of these things, they're just grabbing at excuses,
anything that they can say.
because at the end of the day, we all know the truth, and it's that we're cheating to rig maps to
Yeah.
gain power, and that's it.
So there is no justification. Everybody who's upset right now is very well within their rights to be upset.
Absolutely.
And should this, for whatever reason, go through, they should expect to feel that pushback from their constituents come May and then come November.
And that is where we've really seen people showing up from
Okay.
across the state. I mean, I can't tell you how many people at the state house that I meet who've driven an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours to
Sure.
come to make sure that they're counted, to make sure that their voice is heard. And it's been really inspiring to see how people have been motivated, because we could have an issue like North Carolina does, which is that every time they get frustrated, or they're a very purple state, so their governorship, it kind of goes back and forth between Democrat and Republican. Depending on who's in power, they will redraw their maps.
Sure.
They've redrawn their maps something like 7 times in 10 years. And so then the question becomes, where does it end with us?
Right.
And if we get mad at a congressperson, are we going to then draw them out of their district? Are we going to, do this again because the next president wants us to?
Sure.
Like, just, where does it end?
Yeah.
And then that creates confusion for voters. How do they know who represents them?
Sure. So it goes beyond any one party, and it's really about the way the system is currently set up to create these maps in the first place.
Yeah.
Because ostensibly, like you said, North Carolina as a state, you can choose, oh, we're just going to do this. And there isn't any like regulation or safeguard around that.
No, not unless you put it into your state's constitution. And so
Okay.
that's our challenge here, is that in our state constitution, it says that we have to draw new maps every 10 years after the census. But it doesn't say that we can't do it more often.
Okay.
It's silent on that.
Sure.
For
So
my
we need a
lawyer
very
speak.
clear cut
Yes.
part B. Also, during the 10-year period,
Yes.
no redraws.
If I were writing the Constitution, yes.
So, House is reconvening on the 1st. The Senate is reconvening on the 8th. How quickly would potentially the worst case scenario of this going through, how quickly would that go from the first to passage?
The fastest that you could get a bill through, in keeping the rules the way they currently are,
Sure.
would be about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yes. And so because it has to go through the House first.
Okay.
And then and it has to be right across the desk the first day. Then it has to go into a committee hearing, get out of committee, go to the full body on the floor. It has to go second reading, third reading, and then it would have to come over to the Senate and do the same thing all over again. Now, we can also vote to suspend rules.
Okay.
And we do this sometimes in a budget session. Like when the budget bill comes out, we might suspend the rules about how long something has to wait before it can go on to second or third reading for time's sake. So we could suspend the rules. But one of the key rules is the fact that just because the president of the Senate says we're to come back on December 8th does not mean that he has the authority to do that. He doesn't have the authority. So in our Senate rules, Senate Rule 1B, thank you very much, it says that the president of the Senate has to have the agreement of the minority floor leader, which is Leader Senator Yoder. They have to be in agreement for us to come back. Well, our caucus has not given permission for us to come back. So that's a challenge. And Leader Giaquinta on the House side has brought up the same thing. They have a very similar rule in the House. And so there has to be that agreement.
Right. So, like you said, it's been a rigging. It's been a cheating thing. So clearly already stepping over the line of the rules to get this to go. Something that I saw online, so definitely could not be true, was that when you pass new maps, it still takes a year for those maps to go into effect. Is that true?
No.
Okay, not true.
So it could,
Okay.
depending on at the very last line of any piece of legislation is its effective by date, or when it becomes effective. And so it can say something like, usually it's July 1st, or it can say effective upon passage.
Okay.
And so this would be one of those situations where they would make it effective as soon as it passes, meaning that that it would be ready to implement right away. Now, here's the hitch in the giddy up, is that we have to file. So anyone who's going to be running for Congress has to file starting in January, filing opens. They have to file by the second week of February.
Okay.
So there's a window. People could start filing saying, I'm going to run for District 1. I'm going to run for District 5, for District 8, whichever district. But then if those maps change, they might have to either refile because they could be in a new district, or they, maybe they don't live in their district anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe they, those wouldn't be the people they would represent. And so it could create some serious confusion.
Sure.
So there is a reason why they would like to get this done in December versus, open this up for a whole host of challenges in January.
But while it clears it up for them, maybe, does it really clear it up for voters? And I guess maybe that's what they want to do, is make it more confusing. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the whole federal push has been to make it harder to vote.
Yes.
So that makes sense. To make it more confusing makes it, by extension, more difficult.
And then how do you hold your elected official accountable if they're changing all of the time?
Sure. Well, and then people can put out the argument, well, you didn't vote, so you don't have, your voice doesn't matter as much in this argument because you didn't exercise the right to say what you wanted to say.
Yes.
All right, so this is releasing on the 1st. The House is ostensibly in session at the moment as people are listening to this. And you just said, in 2 weeks, potentially, in a nuclear scenario, we could be seeing new maps coming out.
Or we could see the Senate maintain its backbone and vote them down.
All right.
Which could also happen.
That was going to be my next question.
Yes.
What are, as a person in on the front line, what is that work being done currently? You said they're clearly doing something that is illegal, it seemingly. So it seems like there could be potential roadmaps there, roadways there. What's that look like from the front line?
Yeah, so a couple of best case scenarios where we could be working together, because the public pressure has been incredible and it has really changed the outcome. I mean, you have to think about this. Trump first asked for these maps to be redrawn in August.
Yep.
The governor called us in for a special session, which we didn't do.
Right.
At the end of, or in October. Right. So we have been able to slow this down with public pressure.
Sure.
And so that would be best case scenario. Keep that pressure up. Keep calling, keep showing up, keep emailing, keep sending letters. All of that matters.
Yeah.
Because we track every single thing that's coming in. The House could vote down the maps.
Sure.
There could be enough people to vote those down. There could be, we could deny a quorum, meaning that there aren't enough folks to actually do business.
Sure.
But we do have a supermajority, challenge in both the House and the Senate, which just means that the House and the Senate both have 2/3 of their members are in the Republican Party, so they actually don't even need the Democrats to show up to do business.
Right.
Um,
And they could ultimately
yes.
override a veto from the governor because of that
Yes.
supermajority, correct? Okay.
Absolutely. And so that creates another challenge. Even if the House passes the maps, the fight's not over. The Senate could vote them down.
Right.
And it would be a long, pretty drawn out argument, I'm sure, and challenge and fight on the floor of the Senate. But they could vote those maps down.
Okay.
And so that'll be something that we would definitely need to have continued pressure on folks showing up, folks calling, making sure that they have public commitments from their senators of where they stand on the issue. And then that would be it. Because once a bill is decisively defeated, then it's done.
Sure.
And it's dead in the water.
Yeah.
So
it has to be. Is there like a statute of limitations before you can refile a similar style bill?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Forever,
Yes.
hopefully?
Yeah. Wouldn't that be nice? I'll work on that. I'll work on that amendment to to some legislation. Yes.
Okay. So there are options. There are definitely more optimistic opportunities than we might think. One might think.
I'm the forever optimist.
Sure.
So, you ask 50 of us and you'll get 51 different opinions. But I'm the forever optimist. And I'll tell you, the thing that drives me the most crazy is when people say, Hunley, like, why are you even doing this work in Indiana? Like, isn't it hard being in the super minority? You know what? But like, sure, we could leave and go to Michigan. We
Sure.
could leave and move to Canada. But no, like, this is where the fight is.
Yeah.
Like, this is where I think that rational voices like mine are needed more than anywhere else. And I also love this place. I love this city. I want to represent it. And so that's, all of us should have that same drive, that same passion to say, no, we're here. We're going to make this place better.
Yeah.
We're going to fight to make sure that Indiana is fair. We're going to fight to make sure that we're well represented, and that's for all of us to do.
Well, and like you said, we're a little more purple than people give us credit for. And you look at national news, it's always red when we're talking about Indiana. But again, those are outside perspectives. People here on the ground and people who have had the chance to talk to other Hoosiers know that, okay, well, there's a little bit more connecting us than there is separating us or dividing us. You talked about, like, it's important for us to keep calling, keep emailing, keep reaching out, secure that public commitment on no.
Absolutely. Yes.
One of the things that I was looking up, because I want to make sure I'm giving out appropriate information, was like the most effective call strategy. So I saw like a list of potential like on the fence names and to call, and I was like, okay, those aren't necessarily people that represent me in my district. Does it make the most sense for me to call them, or do I just call the people who represent me?
You need to call your Aunt Sue and Byrne, and you need to make sure that she's calling her senator or representative. Like, that is really
Okay,
key. I mean,
gotcha.
so it does matter. One of the first things that I ask my legislative assistant when she said, you've got 4 phone calls today, they're about this, is, okay, who are they calling from, and are they my constituents? I mean, that's what we want to know.
Gotcha.
It matters. Now, that being said, calling the person in leadership, of course,
Right.
everyone should be calling them.
Right.
Calling the governor's office, everyone should be calling there. And then when and if this gets assigned to a committee, you could also call the committee chair.
Okay.
So if it goes to the elections committee or the rules committee, or calling that committee chair. So thinking about who is in positions of leadership.
Gotcha.
But it really does matter for folks if it's their constituent. And the mail is a real thing. I mean, I've got several letters that, postcards that say, don't rig our maps, stop cheating. Seeing that right there, having it on your desk does make a difference.
Yeah.
It makes you pause. It makes you look at who it's from, what district they're in. And so that really, I think, is more powerful than the emails.
Sure.
So I would say letters, phone calls, emails.
Letters, phone calls, emails.
In that order. And phone calls are, I think, easy for people to do.
Sure.
Know that it's our staff who answer the phones.
Right.
So they don't get to vote on the floor.
Right.
So be kind. But calling them and asking them questions, because they know how their senator or representative that they work for is going to vote.
Right.
And so asking them is wholly appropriate.
Yeah. I will say that I talked to some really nice people in Senator Bray's office who were very nice. And I'm like going in thinking that you're calling across the line, calling into enemy territory, worrying that it's gonna be scary and it's gonna be like a difficult conversation, and it's really not.
No,
Like,
our staffs are nonpartisan, and they are all lovely and work for all of us. So yes.
okay, so I want to ask you on. Okay, so letters, calls, emails. You
And
talked about
showing up at the state
showing up
house,
for
showing
sure.
up, being counted. You know that there was a pro redistricting rally at the state house on organization day. And my favorite quote about it was there were 11s of people that showed up. And it really matters. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, Trump is always talking about crowd size, but it matters
yeah,
that people show up, that people are counted, that, that you see the presence of Hoosiers who care and see the diversity of Hoosiers who care. I mean, there are a lot of just, these blue-haired women who have been fighting hard for decades, who are coming out to the state house. It's
yeah.
powerful to see the dad pushing the stroller
Mm,
with the baby there, saying, no, we're standing up. It's powerful
yeah,
to see our union workers who are coming all the way from Northwest Indiana. It's powerful.
yeah.
And so to see just the plurality of who Hoosiers are,
Sure.
but then also of the Hoosiers agree that we don't cheat.
Yeah,
It's important
yeah.
that people show up.
So we're talking we're talking about the strategy for right now and going forward. I feel pretty confident in people that we can do enough to thwart this attempt. I worry though about kind of the stat that you brought up before, the 101,000 registered voters who didn't turn out in Marion County, 300,000 statewide. I'm seeing through social media on my own pages people in rural conservative districts and areas saying that they don't want their representatives to go for this. My worry is, are we really reaching those folks?
So that's a great question. And we have to remember, right, that our social media is our own echo chamber.
Totally.
And that not even everybody in your group chat showed up to the polls the last time.
Sure.
And so I think that that's the other piece is we got to talk to our friends
Sure.
and make sure that our friends are showing up. And the way that you ask is you say, what's your plan to vote? And you need them to commit to the vote plan. What's your plan? Oh, you're going to go on Wednesday after work? Great. Send me a picture of your I voted sticker, right? We've got to hold each other accountable to voting and also make it inexcusable to not go. And if a friend, needs somebody to come watch their kids so they can go stand in line to vote, help out, right? If somebody needs a ride to go, help out. But when it comes to our friends in rural Indiana, one of the things that we need to make sure is that people have choices on their ballot.
Sure.
That's one reason why people show up. And so we need folks to run. We need folks to run for office.
Okay.
I'm in leadership in the Senate Democrat caucus, and we have been recruiting candidates from up and down the state because our goal is to have someone run in every single district. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah.
Because there are many ways to win an election. Getting the most votes, on election day is one way to win. But another way to win is by showing people what's possible.
Sure.
By leveling up the conversation, by making sure that other ideas get airtime.
Sure.
And by holding that other elected official accountable and then helping us figure out where are those independent thinkers?
Sure.
Where are they? So that we get the information and we get the data and we know that Indiana is more purple than we say.
Totally.
And so we are still looking for folks to run for a couple more seats. And so if people are interested in running for office, I mean, my goodness, reach out. And of course, I'm talking about Senate, but we need people to run at school board and at city council levels. And they say women need to be asked 7 times before they actually run for office. So
you shared that stat the last time.
So consider this year time number 4 of me asking. But folks need to run.
Who do they need to be reaching out to? What's the best way if you just tap somebody and somebody's like, all right, you're right, Senator Hunley, I think I should do this. Where do they go? How do they start? What do they need to do?
Yes, you can catch me at info@andreahunley.com. Very easy to remember. And then all of your elected officials, all of our information is on the website iga.in.gov. That stands for Indiana General Assembly. And we even have the lookup tool on there where you can type in, your name and your your address and find out who your elected representative is, and then have the phone numbers to our offices and our email addresses as well.
I love it. Anything else that you want that you feel like people should know or walk away with on this particular topic? Let's get into it.
The critical importance of keep showing up and stay engaged. And I think that we have the ability and the opportunity to show what Hoosiers are made of, and to make sure that we also tell DC to back off. And this is a critical time that's going to set a precedent for a generation. And I think that we've got to see this as a big part of our fight. So join in the fight. Do something.
Join in the fight. Do something. I love it. Senator Hunley, thank you so much for always making the time.
Thank you.
And I'm excited for people to hear this. Hopefully they are at the State House right now, and for some reason are listening to this. Don't listen to this right now. Listen to what's being said at the rally, but then tune in. But yeah, we're gonna be here fighting. So thank you.
Thank you.
100%. Shout out to Senator Hunley. Every single time I've asked her to come through, have a conversation on the show, whether it be the sit down in the studio, the interviews we did on Monument Circle, she has always said yes, and she has always shown up in the way that I always see her show up for stuff. And it is really inspiring to be able to follow along with her journey through politics as a politician, as a person, in addition to living in the same district, to be represented by her, in addition to literally living fairly close in proximity and getting the opportunity to get to know Ryan. It is just, she's awesome. And there's not really much else to say other than that. I do really appreciate everything that she shared in this conversation about the attempt to rig Indiana's congressional maps for the upcoming and potentially future elections. Beyond that, one of the big takeaways from this conversation, if you take away nothing else, is the importance of showing up, whether that be at the ballot box, whether that be for a candidate in your district, in your neighborhood, wherever you are located, showing up for their campaign in some sort of way, whether it's volunteering, whether it's applying to be a part of that, whatever that might look like, phone banking, all of those things. Whether it be at a rally or an actual protest or some other convening of folks utilizing their voices, expressing their thoughts on what's occurring, and generally flexing our power beyond, again, the ballot box, but also showing up at the ballot box. So I wanted to drop 3 events that are happening this week that you can go to if you are interested. 2 in person, 1 virtual. These are specifically for folks in Indiana, but if you are listening and you are not located here, I encourage you to tap into wherever it is that you are and see what stuff you got going on. So if you're listening to this today on release date, the 1st, there is a rally happening from noon to 2 at the State House. So go check that out. If you are listening to this prior to noon, get downtown, go check that out. On Tuesday, there is a House committee hearing on redistricting. And so a few organizations like Mad Voters are organizing folks to pack out that hearing. That is at 7 p.m. at the State House. You can go to madvoters.org. I'll link it in the show notes. madvoters.org/events, and you can check out those 2 things specifically for the in-person stuff. And then on Thursday the 4th, there is a virtual training. It's like a Know Your Rights training and it's not a know your rights training. It's more like a educational, informational meeting about what is happening right now in Indiana. So the first, the second, and the fourth, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, 3 opportunities to get involved. 2 in person, 1 virtual. If you are interested and you're thinking and you're wondering, what's the first step that I can take? These are 3 great options to just go be a part of. Doesn't mean you have to speak out specifically. It doesn't mean you have to sign up for anything specifically. It is just to help you get informed. It's to help you be in community and solidarity with other folks who maybe have been actively engaged a little bit longer, to see how other people are advocating, activating, whatever that needs to look like for you. I think these are 3 really great opportunities. Again, go to madvoters.org. Lots of other organizations involved, but that is where I pulled these 3 events. So 3 ways you can show up this week. Another thing that I talked about and that we discussed as being an echo chamber was a lot of things that I had heard from folks on social media, because in the past week I had been sharing a lot about the redistricting stuff that was happening, things that people were saying, generally just making comments about what was going on. And I had a lot of folks commenting on some of the posts. And so I just wanted to read some of the stuff that people were writing because it made me laugh. Here's one that made me laugh. How this absolute twat throws out delivering a 9-0 mid-census ultra gerrymandered map and then calls it fair representation, in quotations, is a mystery for the MAGA Kool-Aid chuggers. Braun obviously cares about one man above Hoosiers. What an asshat. Braun lives in the echo chamber of KKK rallies, and I hate that he is my governor every day. There is nothing fair about the maps you are forcing on the people of our state because you are such a patsy for the PDF file. Braun is the Trump turkey at the Hoosiers table. This one I definitely agree with. I don't generally hate any people, but lately I have found there are people I am beginning to hate more and more. So Braun is one of those people. I hate Braun. I don't want to be hating anybody, just like hating for no reason, but I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you. Anyways, that's what it is. So that all happened because I saw Mike Brown quote saying that more Hoosiers publicly favored redistricting than did not favor it. And that clearly was a lie. And I had to post, I just posted on Threads that said, is this true? I don't believe it to be true. And I will say that many, many people showed out in the comments and multiple threads about it. So I think this conversation just highlighted and amplified the fact that this attempted mid-cycle rigging of our maps has nothing to do with Hoosiers that live in Indiana and everything to do with the people trying to grasp at power in Washington, D.C. So we got to work. We got work ahead of us, and we have a lot of we are going to be hearing in the coming days a few other strategies that we can take to make sure that we are being loud, being heard, and impacting our elected leaders' decisions on things that are going to affect us, the people who elected them to lead. So make sure you stay tuned in. Remember, it's write letters, call, and then send the email. Might as well send the email if you do the first 2. It doesn't hurt. All right. As we wrap it up here, I do want to do a quick fact check for episode 4. 2 things. I wasn't sure which Olympics Korea hosted in '88. Confirmed that it was the Summer Olympics, not the Winter Olympics. So Summer Olympics in '88 for Korea, when it was starting to really get amplified that they were shipping out kids via adoption. And the second thing is, I reference the mid-50s a lot as the time period when international adoption was formalized as an industry out of Korea. Um, so the Korean War was occurring at that time. I wanted to clarify that the war ended in 1953, quote unquote, officially. Um, and the mid 50s is that period, 1953 and beyond, I would say, probably till 57. But the mid 50s is a starting point. It doesn't mean that after 57 things stopped. That is where things accelerate. All right. So shout out to everybody that's been tuning in to From the Kitchen Table. I really appreciate y'all. It's been an interesting couple weeks watching the stats, but we're not doing stats. We're doing impact, and we're doing connection and world building. And I just really appreciate everybody who has been a part of this journey with me, and who has been willing to step outside of the zone of however they've met me or come to my content, whether it be Indianapolis, whether it be Asian America, whether it be adopted stuff, and branched into these other areas. And if From the Kitchen Table has been your way into those different things, thank you. I appreciate it. I really enjoy doing the show, and I'm super excited to keep doing it. We got some really cool episodes and conversations coming up, cool topics to unpack. I realized that we did not do the question of the week this week because of all of the immediacy surrounding the map rigging situation that we have here in Indiana. So we will definitely get to that question. I'm not porting it over to the question of the week for this week. We're going to revisit that one. But I will. So the question of the week this week is, who is one musical artist that you feel people need to hear at least once before they leave this mortal plane? Who is one musical artist or act that you believe people need to listen to before they leave this mortal plane? Really excited to hear answers on this. I don't even know if I have a good answer for this. There's going to be a lot of a breakdown for that. But I'm excited to have that conversation. My name is Patrick Armstrong. I'm the one that's doing all of this show. Shout out to Pixabay, the website that has, and all the people that upload stuff there. They provide a lot of the sounds for this episode. Shout out to Senator Hunley for coming through, and shout out to Mad Voters and the team over there for continuing to do a lot of this work, grassroots, on the ground organizing here in Indiana. Until next week.